Howdy, and welcome to this episode of From the Archives. Today, we'll be digging through the archives to look at our treasured partnership with the Zeta Phi Beta sorority and a program called Stork's Nest. In 1969, Epsilon Zeta chapter in Atlanta, Georgia, answered the call of the local March of Dimes Birth Defects Foundation to participate in its service project, Better Infant Births. Better Infant Births was a highly successful program sponsored by the Fulton, DeKalb, Clayton chapter of the March of Dimes. The Zeta chapter opened a shop in the spring of 1971 to provide infant clothing for needy mothers who attended prenatal classes.
That's been interesting.
This is the Stork's Nest, an appropriate name for a place that provides almost everything a baby needs.
Everyone is excited about our project and everyone wants to help. The stores donate paint and people donate clothes, old and new. They give their time. They just do many things to make Stork's Nest go.
The chapter gave those pregnant women a laylet in which to dress their babies to carry them home from the hospital. The laylet was offered as an incentive to any woman who regularly attended a prenatal clinic during the last 6 months of her pregnancy, and it served to encourage these women to get prenatal care and increase the chances of a healthy baby.
Dedicated to the prevention of birth defects, Zetas and the March of Dimes are convinced that healthy babies start with healthy mothers.
All right then, let's see, the first thing is baby booties. Do you see anything up here that you would like?
Good morning, Mrs. Peters. I'm very glad to see you. It seems a rather small thing, but then so is a baby. And regular attendance at the clinics we serve has gone up dramatically. What we need, however, is more person-to-person, more woman-to-woman communication, just more projects like Stork's Nest.
At the time, women were still inclined to use washable diapers, and so a package of these diapers was included as part of the laylet, along with baby shirts, a gown, a belly band, baby powder, and other basics. Experience had shown that very often these women went to the county hospital or any other facility provided to them by welfare, and when it was time to take the baby home, they just wrapped the baby in a blanket because that's all that they had. The success of the Atlanta Stork's Nest was so overwhelming that the Zeta's National Director of Projects, Lulila Harrison, visited Atlanta to evaluate the possibility of duplicating the project in other areas. Ms. Harrison endorsed the idea and recommended to Grand Basilisk Isabel Morgan Herson that it be presented to the board. At the board's recommendation, the project was adopted as a national project of the sorority at the 1972 Boulé and became a cooperative project with March of Dimes. The project was embraced by chapters throughout the country. Approximately 50 locations were opened in the next 2 years, and over the next 20 years, more than 100 locations were established. Interest in the project was strengthened during the term of the next Grand Basilisk, Janice Kistner. Janice was serving as Director of Community Affairs for March of Dimes, and she traveled all over the country as part of her job. In almost every location she visited, there was a Zeta chapter, and she would visit the local Stork's Nest. With the emphasis placed on the Stork's Nest project during the Herson and Kistner administrations, it was well developed and established for the future. We've got a very special guest today, Michaela Penix, who is here to talk about what the Stork's Nest program looks like today. Michaela is Director of Maternal and Infant Health at March of Dimes and works closely with the Zetas. Welcome, Michaela, and thanks for being here. Hey, Michaela. First question. What does Stork's Nest look like today?
So our partnership with Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated has evolved over time, but it's stronger than ever. And so the Stork's Nest program is comprised of prenatal education, where either the Zeta Phi Beta members themselves put on this education, or they partner with a local health expert like their local health department or their hospital, and they provide these prenatal education classes. And families come to these classes and they earn some form of currency. Some call it Z dollars or Z bucks, but then in turn, they're able to come visit the baby store or the Stork's Nest and receive free baby items that are safe for them and can save a little money in the family's pockets.
So what's your experience partnering with the Zetas and the Stork's Nest program? Like, how do you interact with your local nest?
So it's an interesting story. So prior to coming to March of Dimes, I worked at a local health department in North Carolina, and I was inspired by the Stork's Nest. And so I crafted a program that was supposed to be the entree into a Stork's Nest. And so we combine prenatal education and prenatal visits, all of the wraparound services with kind of essentially what I mentioned, these Z dollars or baby bucks. And so that has now blossomed into a full-blown stork's nest here. I was able to again work with our local Zeta Phi Beta members and partners to make that a reality. But then we also have stork's nest in several different areas of the state. And what we do at March of Dimes, at least on the local level, is we support them in finding that data that they need, sometimes finding resources. So I've been able to find diapers and wipes and other baby items to help support the nest. But it's been amazing. Our Zetas are amazing.
Why is a program like Stork's Nest so important to a local community?
So the Stork's Nest is a direct impact on social drivers of health, and we hear that a lot. So all of those things that not necessarily medically indicated impacting health outcomes of moms and babies, but kind of the environmental things. So if you imagine that families are having to make decisions between buying baby items that might be safe versus paying a bill or buying food, the Stork's Nest can directly impact that by saying, hey, here are some free baby items, and you can save that money that you have and put it towards the things that you need. So it directly impacts them by lifting a little bit of that financial burden.
Are there any requirements to like obtaining these items from the Stork's Nest? Do you have to go to prenatal classes, or is it kind of a way to catch folks who might need these services?
So typically it's kind of all of the above. So the requirement is that these families go through the education, because we want to make sure that they're empowered with the knowledge they need to make sure they have a healthy pregnancy and that they can have that healthy first year of life, and we avoid an incident of infant mortality as best we can. But also, from my experience, the Zetas are not going to turn away anybody who needs something. So if there's someone who has a direct need, and especially an emergency need, they just need to contact their local Stork's Nest coordinator.
So I noticed when I was doing some research on the Stork's Nest program, they have kind of a Google map where you can find your local Stork's Nest. You put in your zip code and it'll pop up. I also noticed that, and this might be outdated data or that they just need to go in and fix, but that all of the Stork's Nest sites say closed due to COVID restrictions, appointment needed. So how did COVID affect the nests?
So the hard thing about classes is that usually those are groups. And during COVID, we couldn't gather in groups. So it kind of put a pause on the prenatal education that the Zetas were able to provide in their communities. And so they didn't want to necessarily stop addressing the need, because as we heard throughout the pandemic, we didn't stop having babies. We didn't stop having issues with birth outcomes. So there was still a need that needed to be addressed. And so instead, our Zetas turned to us, and we were able to provide them online education through the Becoming a Mom platform. So folks were able to receive their education virtually, but then to receive their items, it typically went to a by appointment only situation, just to make sure everybody was safe.
We started partnering with the Zetas in the 1970s to do the Stork's Nest. What is this partnership, and what does Stork's Nest look like going forward?
What I love about the partnership is that it evolved from this brilliant idea out of Atlanta to address the immediate needs of families. And our Zetas are so innovative. And so I've heard lots and lots of different ways that they want to customize the Stork's Nest to meet their own needs in their local communities, be it a mobile unit, being similar to my experience where they want to partner with the local health department and include wraparound services. I've heard some rumors of postpartum efforts. So there's just an amazing array of innovation that's out there. And so I think we're going to see some pretty incredible opportunities and some direct impacts on families across the country in the future.
Just between you and me, nobody's watching this. I love the Zetas. They're my favorite national service partner out of all of them. They always bring so much energy to whatever they do, whether it's March for Babies, the Stork's Nest. So go Zetas.
Go Zetas. Yeah, they also make for amazing partners on like everything. Stork's Nest is just the tip of the iceberg. They're here for us for advocacy at the walk, and everywhere we turn, Zetas are there. We love the Zetas.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time today and this episode of From the Archives, talking about Stork's Nest. Michaela, appreciate your time, and thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of From the Archives. I hope you learned something new today, and if there's something you'd like to learn more about, drop a comment in the chat. Until next time, thanks for watching.